Of course, there have been some prominent defections, such as the Warfalla tribe of 1 million people almost. But the point is the reasons they gave, which were about Islamic ethics, about morality, and about their inability to continue an alliance with Gaddafi while he turns the instruments of the state against his own people. So I think there's potential for individuals or for subclans to make that judgment themselves. I don't think it's necessarily a tribal pattern we'll see. But there's also the element of his family, and we know that his son Khamis, who's done very well in the security forces, that's how he's defined himself, he seems to be in charge of a brigade known as the 32nd Brigade, or sometimes I've heard the 2nd Brigade, of 6,000 to 8,000 men.
Right, I want to get to the family breakdown in just a moment, but let's go to Faraj Najam, who's in London. Mr. Najam, the Libyan leader has done something which neither the Egyptian leader nor the Tunisian leader, who both, of course, lost power, did, and that is use his air force against civilians. Now, who would be staffing that air force, and who would have made that decision to unleash the air force and strafe civilians during these demonstrations?
Well, these pilots, some of them obviously are ideologue, but also loyal to the regime, and some of them are fellow tribesmen to Gaddafi. We know that some of them have awakened conscious, and the like of those 2 airplanes which just fell just near Jabbia. One of them has the same surname as Gaddafi, so one of them just felt, you know, this is not right, and he didn't do it. He just let his airplane fall down, and he jumped out of it. But there will be pilots from all over Libya, professional, but there are some hardcore committed thugs who would be willing to do just that for him.
You say there are some who are hardcore, who would have undivided loyalty, but does that mean that there are some whose loyalty cannot be counted upon, that they could easily fly? Well, we have seen some of them fly their jets out of the country into other countries.
Yes, well, the majority have defected to the people, to protesters, and the other ones who are economically, socially, tribally speaking, are connected and interlinked with the regime, and they know that if the regime is going to go down, Gaddafi to name one, they're going to go down with him. So they are hardcore committed thugs, just like him, and they wouldn't mind going it all the way. They feel that they've got their back against the wall, so they have no chance and no other choice but to fight to the end. But they are minority, I would say.
Rashid Kikia, we heard just a moment ago Ali Brahimi talk about the role that Gaddafi's family plays in these militias. What do we know about this role? It would appear that each son in the family, those who are active in the family politically, have their own little militias.
Yes, first of all, I would like to thank you for having me in here, and would welcome your 2 guests as well. Unfortunately, yes, Gaddafi does not trust no one. And the only people that he will trust, I guess, is his own sons. Plus, Gaddafi played a very, very, very big role with one of his closest people to him, which his name is Khalifa Hanish. And he was really, really on taking care of the affairs around the tribes in Libya. Gaddafi's number 1 is he's trying to get the loyalty for all of them to him. And basically, what we're looking at, and as far as I know personally, which my contact with other tribes, they are very, very understanding what kind of person he is. Plus, if we see even on the army itself, it has so many different tribes in it. And that's only because he wants to make a control that his family, that is the one who's holding the big positions. Though even some of the people that with him, they've taken a role, but they don't have a very effective role like his sons do.
Faraj Najam, is there any reason to question the loyalty of even these militias, even those that belong to the family, the Gaddafi family? Is there any way that they could perhaps change their loyalties, change their allegiance, and join the protesters?
Indeed, they would. I mean, if we were to give them a ladder to climb down on, they would. I mean, we've seen that in Benghazi, for example, a section of the Gaddafi tribe did denounce him and did distance themselves from him and his regime and his evil deeds. So the majority of the Gaddafi, they just don't know where to go, and they are really squeezed and between a rock and a hard place. And therefore, we will see, we wait and see what happens to the Gaddafi in and around Sirte and where they're going to go, because even though some of them have been saying that they are in support of the regime, but I think there's a good section of them, they wanted to go in the way that most Libyans have done, and this should, you know, they should be encouraged to do so.
Ali Ibrahimi, what about rivalry between the sons themselves? We understand that there are tensions between family members in the Gaddafi family. Is that likely to affect what is happening right now?
I think absolutely. We were all tremendously surprised by the statement from Saif al-Islam on Sunday, where he appeared to have essentially chosen his father over his principles of reform. And that was extremely shocking, since he'd put his head above the parapet for many years now as a reformer, as an advocate of democracy and of human rights. And he seemed to be backpedaling and essentially backing his father's overwhelmingly disproportional response to the protests in Benghazi. So I don't know that we've heard the last from him, because he's of course the one safety valve that Gaddafi has left, which would be to put Saif al-Islam to the fore and to table some sort of genuine reform movement. But I do believe that the sell-by date for that has passed. I think we may hear something from Saif al-Islam in a last-ditch attempt, perhaps, in the coming days. But I don't know that ordinary Libyans are going to accept that at this stage.
What about the son that you mentioned at the outset of the program, Khamis? Where does he fit into this?
Yeah. Well, he's the younger son. He's about my age. He's been known as a rising star within the security forces. And as I mentioned, he is said to command his own brigade, a highly loyal and very well-trained brigade of ideologically committed individuals. So I think that we can assume that he'd be making some sort of last stand with his father, and that he's someone that his father would very much rely on. Because let's not forget, while Saif al-Islam was very much touted as his father's successor for years, about a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, that changed, and Khamis seemed to be the rising star within the Gaddafi family.
Rashid, let's talk for a moment about foreign hired forces used by Gaddafi, the so-called mercenaries. Now, they're playing a key and it looks like a very brutal role in suppressing these protests. We understand they're mainly from Chad and Niger, but they could be from other countries as well, in West Africa as well as East Africa. Some of them are believed to be from Sudan as well. They, of course, would be motivated purely by money, so I would imagine it would be very difficult to persuade them to change sides in this. So ultimately, do they hold power in Libya at this stage?
Unfortunately, no, they don't. The unfortunate happened in Libya is, this is how it tells you that Libya is united. So he has to go